Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, ANZ School Library Series Teacher Reference Centre. My name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. My background is in education, midwifery, and library and information studies. I'm a certified librarian, and I continue to practice clinically as a registered midwife. Please note that today's session is being recorded. You may have noticed that your microphone has been automatically muted. If you have any questions as we're going along, please hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen or go ahead and type your message into the chat box. Please don't feel like you need to wait until the end of the session to ask any questions. Feel free to jump in anytime. A bit later on today, you will be receiving from me an email with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. The online evaluation only takes a couple of minutes to complete, and if you're able to take the time to do so, we do appreciate it. Each one we receive is read through carefully, and we use them to help structure future training sessions. I've put together a few objectives to go along with today's session. It is my hope that by the end of the session, participants will be able to describe and navigate Teacher Reference Center, access content, work with results, create activities to familiarize teachers, librarians, education students with Teacher Reference Center, and locate relevant help and support materials. So today's session is the fifth and final session in our ANZ School Libraries series. And I thought I'd wrap up looking at Teacher Reference Center. This is a free EBSCO database, and it can be added to your EBSCO profiles, or it can be accessed by anyone at the web address there, www.teacherreference.com. Teacher Reference Center indexes 230 peer-reviewed journals and magazines, and it covers curriculum, pedagogy, classroom management, and much more. It is available on various interfaces, and today we will be looking at Teacher Reference Center on EBSCO host. But again, it can be accessed on EDS or EBSCO Discovery Service and also Explorer. Some practical applications for using Teacher Reference Center include things like finding lesson plan ideas, staying current on educational trends, supporting professional development, and assisting students with research. So before we take a closer look, I do want to quickly review some search tips. The first one I'm going to mention is Boolean searching, and this is an important search strategy that we will be using today. So when we talk about Boolean searching, if you're wondering where the word Boolean comes from, it comes from the name of the British mathematician whose work it's based on. His name was George Boole, and he lived in the 1800s in England and later Ireland. You may have heard of Boolean logic, and much of today's modern computer coding is based on Boolean logic. When we talk about Boolean searching, this is the name given to a very simple and logical but very powerful way of searching. When you perform a Boolean search, you're entering two or more search terms separated by one of the Boolean operators. And the Boolean operators are the words and, or, and not. The Boolean operator AND is used between terms to narrow your search. For example, if I were to input endangered and birds, I would only retrieve references pertaining to both of those things. I would not retrieve general information about endangered that's nothing to do with birds, and I would not retrieve general information about birds that's nothing to do with endangered. I would only retrieve information that is about both of those concepts. So it's like the overlap in a Venn diagram, and that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in that reddish orange color. Now, this can be a little bit confusing to people who are new to Boolean searching because, of course, in our everyday language, when we use the word and, it's an expander. When we use and, we're talking about more things. But in Boolean searching, and is used between terms to narrow your search. The Boolean operator or is used between terms to broaden your search. So if I ask the database for articles to do with endangered or birds, I'm going to retrieve every single reference about endangered as well as every single reference about birds. And that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in the yellow. Again, this can be a little bit confusing to people new to Boolean searching because in our everyday language, when we use the word or, it narrows things down. But in Boolean searching, or broadens your search. The Boolean operator not is used to omit a term from your search. So if I were to enter endangered not birds, I would retrieve references containing the term endangered, but anything to do with birds would be omitted. And that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in the green. I also want to mention wildcard searching. So when we talk about wildcard searching, this refers to using characters on your keyboard, such as an asterisk, a question mark, a hash, or quotation marks. So the asterisk is the truncation or word stemming device, and we use this to take the place of a string of letters or characters, or it can also take the place of a whole word. For example, if I wanted to do a search for nurse, nurses, nursing, and so on, I could enter all of those search terms, or I could enter the common stem or root of those words, in this case, NURS, followed by an asterisk. From the system's point of view, it's looking for any words that are NURS followed by other letters. As I mentioned, the asterisk can also replace a word. So if I were to enter early symptoms of space asterisk space infection, the search engine is going to look for any phrases that are made up of the words early symptoms of, then any other word, then infection. So I'd retrieve phrases like early symptoms of viral infection, early symptoms of respiratory infection, and so on. The single character wildcard is the question mark, and this works like the asterisk, but it just replaces a single letter. The alternate spelling wildcard is the hash, and this can be used for words that have multiple spellings. Using quotation marks for phrase searching is something I think we are all familiar with these days. I know I use it all the time when I'm just doing Google searches and that kind of thing. If you put quotation marks around a phrase, you will retrieve references that contain those terms next to each other in that exact order. Now, I'm just very briefly going to mention our final search strategy, and that's proximity searching. This one is probably less well known than the others, but it can be quite useful. When you're doing a proximity search, you're asking the interface to find any time your two words are within a certain number of words of each other. So the structure is similar to a Boolean search in that you're entering your two search terms separated by an operator, but instead of using and or not, you're using the letter N or W and a number. So if you use N, it's going to look for any time your words are within however many words of each other in any order. For example, if I were to enter healthcare N5 leadership, I'm asking the interface to find anytime the words healthcare and leadership are within 5 words of each other in any order. So this would match healthcare leadership. It would also match leadership in healthcare. When you use W, it works similarly, except that the words must be in the order that you enter them. So if I were to enter healthcare W5 leadership, this would match healthcare leadership. It would not match leadership in healthcare. So I'm just going to jump now into a live demo, and I do invite you to follow along. So we do have a link here, and I'm just going to pop that in the chat box. So I've popped the link in the chat box and you can see the login and the password are there. And I will just put those into the chat box as well. So our login is hands-on training and that is not case sensitive. I have used upper and lower case on the slide in front of you, but you do not have to do that. However, for the password, that is case sensitive. As you can see, it's the word train with a capital T, a number 1 instead of the I, and followed by an exclamation point. So it is capital T, lowercase r, lowercase a, the number 1, lowercase n, and an exclamation point. So if you would like to follow along, please go ahead and click on the link and enter the login and the password. And I'm just going to switch now to my Chrome browser. So if you just bear with me. All right, so as I mentioned, I am accessing Teacher Reference Center on EBSCOhost today. And as you can see, I have my single search bar here. Now your EBSCOhost may be set up like this, or it can be customized to an extent. So some of you may default to an advanced search screen that looks like this, where as you can see, you've got multiple search bars. You've got 3 of them. You can add more for complex searching or take those away again. And you'll recognize here are our Boolean operators. You also can select search fields if you know what those are. All right, but you do not have to select a search field. But for example, if you were searching for an article by a particular author, or if you knew the title of the article, you can enter those. Geographic terms, if you know the ISSN, the journal name, and so on. But for now, I'm just going to do a very broad search. As you can see, as I'm typing, suggestions are popping up. So I've performed a search here. As you can see, I've got 11,000 results. So I can start to apply some filters. My most commonly used filters sit under that search bar. If I click on all filters, a large number of filters slide out from the right-hand side. So let's say I'm only interested in articles where the full text is available. Let's say I'm only interested in articles that have been peer reviewed. And let's say I'm only interested in articles from the past 5 years. Now, I can also look at source type, but of course, because I've selected peer reviewed, the only articles left are articles from academic journals. If I click on all filters, you can see here you can narrow down. You can do a custom range for publication date if you wish. If you were searching a number of databases at once, which you can do, you can narrow down by database there. Of course, we're only searching one database. There's our source types. Again, I selected peer reviewed, so we've only got academic journals there. I can narrow down by subject. And what this refers to, you'll notice for each of these, you have the title of the article, you have the author's name, you have the name of the journal or publication, the issue, the name of the database. You have the first couple of lines of an abstract or a description. If you click on Show More, you can see the entire thing. And you will notice that each article has been tagged with a number of subjects. So this has been tagged with prior learning, higher education, graduate students, grade repetition, actor network theory, and so on. And you'll notice that each of these has been tagged with a number of subjects. So it's just like using hashtags on social media. It's a way of applying metadata, and it's what makes the articles searchable. So I can narrow down by subject if I wish to. So if I just wanted to know about articles tagged with higher education, I can apply that. All right, and you can see I have a number of options there. If I click on Access Options, it tells me how I can access the full text. Sometimes it's PDF, sometimes it's online, full text, sometimes it's both. If I click on PDF, that will open up that PDF. And you can see here this beautifully formatted PDF that looks just like a page out of a journal. complete with page numbers and page breaks. You'll notice a number of icons here. If you hover your cursor over each of them, you'll get some text. So I'm able to save this item. There's a great citation tool. If you click on this, you get a drop-down menu of citation styles or formats. When you find the one you want, you can simply copy to clipboard. You can also export citations using EndNote or EasyBib or whatever you use. I can also add to a project. I can share, I can download, I can print. I've got publication contents here, which are similar articles. I have a listen function. So if I press play, the entire article is read to me in a computerized voice. I can adjust the playback speed, or I can download as an MP3. There's also accessibility support if you need it. Now I'll just show you how the PDF differs to the online full text. You'll notice the online full text looks very similar to the PDF, but as I'm scrolling, you will notice there are no page breaks and no page numbers. You will notice that these icons are the same. You will notice there's an additional one. There's a translate feature. So when you have online full text, you have the ability to translate. Now, this usually only takes about 3 to 5 seconds. All right, it looks like it's going to take a bit. Oh, there we go. Okay, and you can return to your original language with one click. You've got that publication contents again and that listen feature. So again, you can download an MP3 and listen to journal articles if you wish to. All right, so you'll notice this bookmark here. I can save individual articles. You'll also notice this kebab menu. That's the name given to these 3 dots here. If I hover my cursor, it tells me these are tools. And again, I can cite, I can add to project, I can share, and I can download. Now you can see here I can adjust how many results per page. Default is 10. That can be changed. They're in order of relevance, but I can change that to date order with the newest or the oldest at the top. This kebab menu here, I can save this search and it will appear in my saved section. And I can also create an alert. Now if I save this search, you will notice it does prompt me to sign in. So you can save things temporarily, but if you wish to save them permanently, you need to click on sign in, and that will sign you into your My EBSCO account. And I'm going to go ahead and sign into mine just to show you how it works. If you don't have one, you just need to click on create an account. It takes about a minute to create one. Now, the search name defaults to whatever your search term was. You can call it something different. This is free text. You can type whatever you want in there. Description's optional. Tells me how many results I had for that search, gives me details about the search. Now, I'm not able to edit my query, but I can copy it to a clipboard so that I can edit it elsewhere and re-enter it. Now, if I go ahead and save that, when I go into my saved items, into my saved searches, you can see that is the search I just did then. All right. Now you also have the ability to do some more complex searching. So if we go to advanced search, I'm just going to click new search to clear that out. And I'm going to go into some advanced search examples. So let's say I'm interested in reading comprehension. Again, you can see those suggestions there. And teachers or educators. Now I'm keeping my Boolean operator at and because I want the intersection of these two concepts. And you can see I have several results there. Now again, I can start to apply the filters. Now, you will notice that several of the fields we looked at are hyperlinked text. For example, if I click on this author's name, I will run a search for articles by authors called Tilla Oliphant. If I click on reading comprehension, I'm going to run a search for articles that have been tagged with the subject reading comprehension. So if I go ahead and do that, you will notice that every article in my results list has been tagged with reading comprehension. Okay, so there's a number of ways you can search. So let's go ahead and click on New Search, and let's put in STEM curriculum, and you can see we have a number of results there. If I go to recent activity, it shows me my search history. These are the searches I have done during this session. Now you'll notice that initial search I did for pedagogy. You'll notice there are several searches, and that is because each time I change my search in any way, it counts as a new search. So I performed the search, I added the full text limiter or filter, I added the peer-reviewed filter, I added the past 5 years publication filter, and so on. You can also look at any records you have viewed recently as well. And as we've seen, you can save searches, you can also save records. You can also set up projects, and if I click on projects, you'll see I've set up a few there. If I go back to this search, if I want to add some of these to a project, I can click on that kebab menu, click on Add to Project. I can select the project I want to add to from my drop-down menu, or I can create a new project from here as well. Okay. Now, I do want to talk about some things you can use Teacher Reference Center for. And I do have a sample activity here. And this is called the Teacher Reference Center Treasure Hunt. So assuming your participants are people like teachers, librarians, education students, other users who are learning how to use Teacher Reference Center, your objective is to familiarize participants with using Teacher Reference Center to locate specific types of educational resources, reinforcing search strategies, and using the Teacher Reference Center database and the selected interface. Your first step is to introduce the challenge. The second step is to give your participants 3 prompts, and there's some examples here. Let's say one prompt may be to find an article about classroom management strategies for high school teachers. Another prompt could be locate a peer-reviewed article on inclusive education. Another prompt could be search for a recent article in the last 5 years on technology integration in elementary classrooms. Third step would be ask them to share the title of the article, the publication it appeared in, and one key takeaway from the abstract. The next step would be to debrief together. For example, let's hear what you found. Did anyone find something surprising or especially useful? And some optional variations. You could do this as a team, breaking into small groups and assigning each group a different prompt. Could be a speed round. You could offer a small prize for the first person to complete all 3 prompts. And as a reflection, ask how could you use this article in your teaching or professional development? All right, does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found this session useful. This has been session 5 in our 5-session series on ANZ school libraries. I hope you found it useful. As I mentioned, you will be receiving an email from me a bit later on today with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. Thank you so much for attending.